It's funny how a life can be measured in coffee cups. For 10 years, my life with Sean was a morning ritual. 2 cups, same Nespresso pods, a splash of oat milk for me, black for him. We'd sit in the breakfast nook of our beautiful 4-bedroom house in a quiet corner of Austin, Texas, the one with the wraparound porch and the ridiculously green lawn that I spent every Saturday tending to. We weren't just married, we were an institution. The high school sweethearts who actually made it. 10 years together, 7 years married. We were that couple, the one everyone pointed to and said, "See, it can work." Sean was the breadwinner, a rising star in a downtown tech firm. I was the CEO of our home. I handled the investments, managed the budget, decorated our life, and made sure the gears of our perfect world turned without a single squeak. I loved it. I curated our existence with the same precision an artist uses on a masterpiece. From the thread count on our sheets to the SP 500 index funds in our portfolio, everything was optimized for happiness. Or so I thought. Our world was a meticulously constructed snow globe, beautiful and perfect. And then a new hand reached in and decided to shake it. Her name was Queen. She was his new boss, a VP flown in from the San Francisco office. Sean talked about her constantly at first. "Queen is a killer," he'd say, a new kind of admiration in his voice. "She's sharp, she's ruthless, she doesn't take no for an answer." I'd nod and smile, picturing some power suit-wearing Miranda Priestley type. I encouraged him, told him to learn everything he could from her. I was his biggest cheerleader. I had no idea I was cheering for my own replacement. The changes were small at first, almost unnoticeable, like the first hint of a chill before a winter storm. The 6 p.m. homecomings stretched to 8 p.m., then 10 p.m. "Big project, babe. It's a game changer for the company," he'd say, tossing his keys into the ceramic bowl by the door, the one I bought at a farmer's market in Fredericksburg. The late nights became working weekends. His phone, which used to be left carelessly on the kitchen counter, was now permanently attached to his hand, screen down. I started noticing the scent of a different perfume on his shirts when I did the laundry. It wasn't the loud, cheap stuff from a club. It was expensive, subtle, something woody and floral. The kind of perfume a woman who calls herself Queen would wear. I'd hold his laundered shirt to my face and feel a knot of ice form in my stomach. I told myself I was being crazy, paranoid. We were Jane and Sean. We were endgame. But the distance between us grew from a crack to a canyon. The coffee cups in the morning were silent. The easy laughter during our nightly Netflix binge was replaced by the frantic tapping of his thumbs on his phone. He said he was answering work emails from Queen. He wasn't entirely lying. The confession, when it came, wasn't a tearful, dramatic breakdown. It was a Tuesday. It was raining, one of those thick, humid Texas downpours that makes the air feel heavy. He came home late, smelling of bourbon and that perfume. He didn't even say hello. He just stood there in the foyer, dripping water on the hardwood floors I had just polished, and dropped the bomb that would shatter my world. "I've been sleeping with Queen," he said. His voice was flat, devoid of emotion. No remorse, no apology, just a statement of fact, like he was telling me the traffic was bad on I-35. I felt the air leave my lungs. The entire house, our perfect, curated life, seemed to tilt on its axis. The ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall sounded like a hammer against an anvil. "For how long?" I managed to whisper. My voice was a stranger's. "A few months," he shrugged, finally looking at me. And what I saw in his eyes was the most terrifying thing of all, pity. "Listen, Jane, it's just... She gets me. She understands my world, the pressure. We're on the same level." On the same level. The words echoed in the sudden roaring silence of my mind. For 10 years I had been his level. I had managed our finances so well that we were debt-free except for the mortgage. I had supported his every ambition, hosted his work dinners, and remembered his mother's birthday when he forgot. I had built the entire foundation he was standing on, and he had the audacity to tell me I wasn't on his level. He kept talking, the words spilling out of him now, a torrent of casual cruelty. "I want a divorce. I'm going to be with her. You can have the house, I don't care. It's the least I can do." It sounded generous, didn't it? The beautiful house in Austin. But I knew our finances better than he did. The house came with a hefty mortgage, property taxes that could choke a horse, and all the upkeep. He was leaving me with the shell, the gilded cage, while he planned to drain our liquid assets. "I'm taking the money from the joint savings," he continued, as if reading my mind. "I earned it, after all. You'll need it to cover the mortgage until you sell or figure out what you're going to do." He said it with the smug finality of a man who thinks he's already won. He saw me as the stay-at-home wife, a domestic accessory he could now discard. He had completely and utterly underestimated me. That was his first mistake, and it was going to be his last. I just stood there and nodded. I let the tears fall. I played the part he expected me to play, the broken, hysterical wife. Inside, the shock was already crystallizing into something else, something cold, hard, and sharp. It was rage, pure, uncut, and deeply clarifying. He left that night to go stay with her. As the door clicked shut behind him, I slid down the wall and let out one single, guttural sob. The pain was immense, a physical weight pressing down on my chest. It felt like I was being buried alive. It's a horrible feeling, isn't it? Being made to feel small and worthless by the one person who was supposed to protect you. If you've ever felt that sting of betrayal, that soul-crushing loneliness, hit that subscribe button right now. Let's create a space where no one has to feel that way alone. Don't just scroll by, unless you believe people deserve to be abandoned when they're at their lowest. If you think that, I genuinely want to hear why in the comments. Explain it to me. For 2 days, I let myself grieve. I didn't shower. I ate ice cream out of the carton and watched sad movies, wrapping myself in the chunky knit blanket Sean's mom had made for us for our first Christmas as a married couple. I let the pain wash over me in waves, each one dragging me further out to sea. But on the 3rd day, I woke up, and the grief had been burned away by the cold fury underneath. He thought I was just a housewife. He was about to meet the CEO. I got out of bed, took a long, hot shower, and made myself a single cup of coffee. I sat down at the kitchen table, opened my laptop, and got to work. For years, I had managed our money. I knew every dollar, every investment, every password. Sean was the earner, but I was the strategist. He saw the battlefield. I saw the whole damn map. The first thing I did was check the calendar. I knew his company paid out their annual bonuses at the end of the fiscal quarter, which was in 3 weeks. And this year, thanks to the game-changing project he and Queen had been working on, his bonus was set to be the biggest of his career, 6 figures, a life-altering amount of money. Our money. My mind raced. He said he was taking the money from our joint savings. He was waiting for that bonus to land before he cleaned me out. I had a 3-week head start. The next call I made was to the best divorce attorney in Austin. I found him through a friend of a friend. His name was George, a silver-haired shark with a reputation for eviscerating cheating husbands in court. I walked into his downtown office, laid out the entire situation, and slid our financial statements across his polished mahogany desk. George listened intently, his face unreadable. When I finished, he leaned back in his leather chair, and a slow smile spread across his face. "Mrs. Miller," he said, and I flinched at the name. "Soon to be Ms. Peterson again," I corrected him. "Ms. Peterson," he amended. "Your husband is an arrogant fool, and arrogant fools make mistakes." He explained the law to me in plain, simple terms. Texas is a community property state. That means that everything earned during the marriage, salary, investments, and yes, bonuses, is considered joint property. 50-50. Legally, half of that money was mine. "He's planning to drain the account the second the bonus hits," I said, my voice steady. "He'll leave me with nothing but the house and the debt." "Then we just have to be faster than him," George said, his eyes twinkling. "Here's what we're going to do." The plan was simple, brutal, and beautiful. It was a corporate takeover of my own life. For the next 3 weeks, I played the role of the grieving, abandoned wife to perfection. When Sean called to discuss logistics, I cried. I begged him to reconsider. I told him I didn't know how I'd survive without him. Every word was a lie, a carefully crafted performance to keep him complacent and confident. He lapped it up, his voice dripping with condescending pity. "You're stronger than you think, Jane. You'll be okay." Oh, I was going to be more than okay. While I was playing the victim to him, I was a general preparing for war. I opened a new set of bank accounts in my name only at a completely different bank. I meticulously calculated exactly what I was owed. 50% of our current savings, 50% of our investment portfolio, and 50% of his impending bonus, right down to the last cent. George's forensic accountant helped me find a few other assets Sean had conveniently forgotten to mention, a separate brokerage account he'd been funding for the last year. We added 50% of that to the tally as well. I set up every alert possible on our joint account. Email notifications, text messages, push alerts. I wanted to know the exact second that bonus landed. I spent my days packing up his things, not in a frantic, angry way, but with a calm, methodical precision. I boxed up his expensive suits, his collection of single malt scotch, and the stupid Peloton he'd only used twice. I labeled every box and stacked them neatly in the garage. I was cleansing my house and my life. During this time, I also started thinking about my next move. What would I do with the money? What would I do with my life? The house felt less like a home now, and more like a museum of a dead relationship. I had skills. I had managed a complex household budget and a multi-asset investment portfolio for a decade. I had organized charity galas and corporate functions that were the talk of Sean's company. I didn't just have skills, I had a resume. I just needed to write it. I started sketching out a business plan, a high-end lifestyle management and consulting firm. For busy executives who wanted a perfectly curated life but had no time to do it themselves, I would be the CEO of other people's lives, and I would be damn good at it. The idea thrilled me. It was a spark in the darkness, a promise of a future that was mine and mine alone. Do you feel that spark of power when a plan starts coming together? It's the feeling of taking back control. But so many people are stuck, thinking they have no options. If you're tired of feeling powerless, subscribe to this channel. This is your sign that you have more strength than you think. Subscribing is the first step in deciding you're going to be the hero of your own story. Or you can just keep scrolling and let life happen to you. Go ahead and tell me in the comments why you'd choose to stay a background character. The day came. D-Day, bonus day. I woke up before dawn, my heart pounding in my chest. I felt like a soldier waiting for the signal to go over the top. I made my coffee, sat at my laptop, and watched the account screen, hitting refresh every 30 seconds. The morning dragged on. 8 a.m., 9 a.m., 10 a.m., nothing. I started to panic. Did he know? Did he move the money to another account? And then, at 10:17 a.m., it happened. A single line of text appeared. A direct deposit from his company. The number was so large it looked like a typo. My breath hitched. For a second, I just stared at it. It was real. I didn't hesitate. My fingers flew across the keyboard. It took less than 60 seconds. I initiated the wire transfers I had pre-scheduled. The first one was for my half of the savings. Transfer confirmed. The second was my half of the hidden brokerage account. Transfer confirmed. The final glorious transfer was for my half of that massive bonus. Transfer confirmed. I watched the balance in our joint account plummet. I left him exactly half of what was there before the bonus. I was nothing if not fair. I was taking my severance package from a decade-long job. I took a screenshot just for posterity. Then I picked up the phone and called George. "It's done," I said. "Excellent," he replied, a hint of glee in his voice. "The server is on his way to your husband's office right now. I estimate he'll be served with the divorce papers in the next 20 minutes. Oh, this was the masterpiece. The cherry on top. George had arranged for the divorce papers to be served to Sean at his desk, in the middle of his open plan office, in front of all his colleagues, in front of his new boss and girlfriend, Queen. The petition cited adultery and listed Queen by name. I leaned back in my chair and took a sip of my now cold coffee. The silence in the house was no longer heavy with grief. It was light. It was the silence of freedom. My phone rang about 30 minutes later. It was Sean. I let it ring a few times before answering, putting on my calmest, most serene voice. "Hello?" He wasn't calm. He was screaming. A string of curses and accusations that was so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "The money, Jane! Where's the money? The account is empty!" "Not empty, Sean," I said, my voice as cool as a winter morning. "You have your half. I have mine. It's called community property. You should look it up." "You can't do that. I earned that money," he shrieked. "We earned that money," I corrected him. "And my half is now safely in an account you can't touch. Oh, and by the way, you've been served." There was a sputtering on the other end of the line. You served me at work?" "I thought it was only fair that Queen be included," I said sweetly. "Since she's been such a big part of our marriage recently." I could hear her voice in the background now, sharp and panicked. The dream team was already imploding. The humiliation must have been exquisite. He was no longer the conquering hero showing up with a war chest of cash to start their new life. He was a man who had been outmaneuvered, outsmarted, and publicly shamed. His power couple fantasy had just gone up in flames. "You will regret this, Jane," he seethed, his voice low and threatening. "No, Sean," I said, and for the first time I let the steel in my voice show. You underestimated me. That is what you will regret." Then I hung up, and I blocked his number. That feeling of hanging up on your toxic past? There's nothing like it. Everyone deserves that moment of liberation. But you won't get there if you don't arm yourself with the right mindset. Subscribing is like adding a weapon to your arsenal. It's a click, but it's also a commitment to choosing yourself. If you're not ready to make that commitment, I have to ask why. Head down to the comments and tell the world why you'd rather stay in a battle unarmed. The next year was a blur of controlled chaos. I sold the house. It was beautiful, but it was full of ghosts. I took the equity and my severance package and poured all of it into my new life and my new business, Peterson Premier Living. I hired a small, hungry team, including a brilliant young marketing guy named Denzel and a sharp, no-nonsense operations manager named Michelle. We started small, working out of a rented co-working space in East Austin. I used my network, the one I had built over a decade of hosting parties and charity events, to land my first clients. They were wealthy, time-poor executives who were thrilled to pay someone with my taste and organizational skills to manage their lives. I organized their dinner parties, renovated their kitchens, booked their impossible-to-get family vacations, and even managed their kids' private school applications. I did for them what I had done for my own household, but this time I was sending an invoice, a very large invoice. The work was grueling. I worked 18-hour days. I lived on coffee and ambition. There were days I was so exhausted I'd fall asleep on the couch in my new, much smaller, but entirely mine, apartment overlooking Lady Bird Lake. There were moments of doubt, moments of sheer terror where I thought I had made a massive mistake. But every time I felt like giving up, I would picture Sean's smug, pitying face, and it would fuel my fire. Failure was not an option. And we didn't fail. We soared. Denzel was a social media genius, and soon our company was the talk of the town. We were featured in Texas Monthly and Forbes. Our client list grew from Austin locals to CEOs in Dallas, Houston, and eventually coast to coast. Within 2 years, Peterson Premier Living was a 7-figure business. Within 3 years, I was a self-made millionaire. I bought myself a penthouse condo with a panoramic view of the Austin skyline. I traveled the world, not on someone else's dime, but on my own. I went to Paris and drank champagne at the top of the Eiffel Tower. I walked the Great Wall of China. I learned to scuba dive in the Great Barrier Reef. I was no longer curating a life for two. I was building an empire for one. I didn't date much at first. I was too busy falling in love with my own life, with the woman I was becoming. I was strong, independent, and completely self-reliant. I had friends, a business I was passionate about, and a freedom I had never known. I was happy, genuinely, deeply happy. This is the part of the story where the hard work pays off. But so many people quit right before the breakthrough. They listen to the doubt. They let the fear win. Don't be one of them. Subscribing to this channel is a daily reminder to keep fighting for the life you deserve. Every new video is a dose of motivation. So what's the excuse? If you're not subscribing, what are you telling yourself? Is it that you don't deserve success? Go on, let it out in the comments. Let's talk about it. About a year after the divorce was finalized, I was having lunch with my lawyer, George, who had become a good friend and mentor. We were at a fancy restaurant downtown, celebrating a new contract my company had landed. As we were finishing our dessert, I saw him. Sean, he was sitting at the bar alone. He looked diminished. His expensive suit was slightly rumpled. He had bags under his eyes. He looked older, tired, and defeated. He saw me, and his eyes widened. I just gave him a small, polite nod and turned back to my conversation with George. A few minutes later, he approached our table. "Jane," he said. His voice was hesitant. "Sean," I replied, my tone neutral. "You look amazing," he said, his eyes scanning my outfit, the expensive jewelry, the confident way I held myself. "I've seen your company online. Wow, you're doing really well." "I am," I said simply. There was no need to elaborate. "Listen," he said, lowering his voice. "Things with Queen. They didn't work out. It all fell apart after after everything. The public humiliation at work was too much. She took a transfer to the London office. I ended up losing my job a few months later." He looked at me, his eyes full of a pathetic, desperate hope. "I've made a terrible mistake, Jane. I was a fool. We were so good together. I was wondering if maybe we could get a coffee sometime? Talk?" I looked at this man, this ghost from a past life, and I felt nothing. No anger, no pain, not even pity. Just a profound sense of detachment. He was a stranger I used to know. I gave him a slow, deliberate smile. I appreciate the offer, Sean, but I have a policy against investing in assets that have proven to have a negative return. It was a bad investment, and I've since diversified my portfolio. His face fell. He didn't understand the financial jargon, but he understood the rejection. George coughed to hide a laugh. My time is very valuable now, I continued, my smile never wavering. In fact, I pulled a business card from my purse. It was thick, embossed cardstock with my name and title, Jane Peterson, CEO. If you'd like to book a consultation, my assistant Michelle can schedule a 1-hour appointment for you. My current rate is $1,000 an hour. I'm sure in that time I could give you some excellent advice on how to get your life back on track. I handed him the card. He just stared at it, his hand trembling slightly. The humiliation on his face was absolute. He had come to me expecting a tearful reunion, a second chance. Instead, he got a price list. He mumbled something and practically fled the restaurant. George raised his glass of champagne. To the CEO, he said, his eyes shining with pride. I clinked my glass against his. To the CEO, I repeated. I never saw Sean again. I heard through the grapevine that he moved back to his hometown in Ohio, taking some mid-level sales job, a shadow of the man he used to be. Sometimes, when I'm standing on the balcony of my penthouse looking out at the city lights twinkling below, I think about that perfect little house with the wraparound porch. I think about the woman who lived there, the one who measured her life in coffee cups for two. I feel a pang of sympathy for her, for the pain she had to endure. But I am endlessly, deeply grateful for her, because she had to be broken so that I could be built. Her pain was the price of my freedom. Her tears were the water that made my empire grow, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. My story had a happy ending because I wrote it myself. Your story is still being written. The next chapter begins right now. The easiest thing you can do, the very first step to taking control, is to click the subscribe button. It's a signal to yourself and to the universe that you're ready for more. If, after hearing all this, you still won't subscribe, then the story you're telling yourself is that you're not worth the effort. Go to the comments section right now and finish this sentence. I'm not subscribing because I don't believe. Let's see what excuses we're holding on to. For everyone else, welcome to the first day of your new empire. Let's build it together.